First on the agenda is Mayor Pro Tem Davis, who will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed on our community, and we ask that you take care of all of our first responders during this troublesome infection that we have going through our communities. We ask that you take care of the City Council and guide them as they deliberate through the many issues that they have to talk about over the upcoming months. In your name we pray, amen. The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Today we have a presentation, the introduction of this year's 2020-2021 Schertz Sweetheart Court Ambassadors. Ms. Spence?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. A few weeks have passed since we said a temporary goodbye and a thank you to our 2019-2020 Sweetheart Court and welcome the 2020-2021 Court Ambassadors. With the rescheduling of Fiesta events to November, we're still hopeful that our 2019-20 court will get a chance to participate in the Flambeau Parade and get a chance to have that experience as well, too. Then we can officially close their year. For this new year, we had 14 young ladies representing East Central, John Paul II, Judson, Steele, and Clemens High Schools, apply to serve as ambassadors in the Sweetheart Court program. After a 5-week, very modified program, selected to represent the city are Miss Sunshine, Tamaya Whiteside.
Hello.
Miss Friendly City, Nina Guastafiero.
Hi.
Miss Jubilee, Olivia Coates.
Hello.
Hi.
And Miss Schertz, Zaire Franklin.
Hello.
As they jump into their new roles, Miss Franklin would like to share a few words with you.
Okay. For those of you that may not know, I am Zaire Franklin, and I will be representing Ms. Schertz. When I first initiated the process, I honestly was doing it not knowing that I would actually making the court, but in hopes that at least I tried. I was afraid that maybe I wasn't good enough for this, considering I've never done a pageant or anything like it before. I was thinking maybe they won't like my spirit or they won't like my personality. But when it came down to the interview portion, I knew that maybe I did have a chance. Maybe that they will love my spirit. I'm sorry. It's amazing the impact that I've already had on so many little girls and women in the community just by going to the movie in the park this past week. The way that they look at me and the way that they compliment me, or the way that they say that they're proud to see someone that looks just like them in their community being a princess just like them. And I am so honored to be the new Miss Schertz. Thank you. That's all.
The court's looking forward to the Jubilee Parade and participating with you and being able to celebrate the 4th of July in our family heritage.
Thank you, Ms. Spence. Ladies, thank you for representing our city, and I look forward to all the events and everything, the impact you have in our city and our community. Thanks again. Appreciate it. All right, we'll continue with announcements of upcoming city events. None? Okay. Announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown? Okay, announcements and recognitions by the mayor, I don't have any. So we'll continue with the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. I have one person that signed up, and that's Trey Campos.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tracy Campos. I'm talking to you about item number 4. I know it's a consent agenda, and y'all talked about this at the last council meeting, and y'all wondered why none of the residents that are affected came to the meeting, because none of them knew. None of the property owners that are adjacent to it, the 200 feet, none of them knew that it was going for a vote. None of them knew that this little subdivision, well, not little, but this huge subdivision was going to be voted on. Otherwise, they would have been here. I talked to 2 of them, 2 of the 4, and none of them knew that it was going before a vote, and I can assure you that they're all against it. They're not against a subdivision. They were okay with the 2 to 5 acre farmettes or ranchettes, and I just want to say that as a council, y'all promised the residents, y'all gave your word that you wouldn't put in a cookie cutter subdivision, and now you're going to put in a cookie cutter subdivision. You're going to dump it out onto RAF Burnett, which is not even a county maintained road. You're going to put it on Schaefer Road, which is not a city road. And have y'all ever been out there? Do y'all know how much traffic is out there? Do you know how far Schaefer Road backs up, even with the traffic light? I mean, it backs up for half a mile to a mile in the mornings when school is on, when there's not a COVID virus going on. A mile down the road to the first curb, if y'all ever drive out there. So y'all are going to dump that on basically a private drive right now, RAF Burnett, where the subdivision's going to dump out on. Well, one of them is a county dead end. County doesn't maintain it. They don't do anything to it. It's basically a private drive for the residents that live out there. There's no drainage on that portion of the road. But rest assured, I just wanted y'all to know that the residents that are property owners on all around it are all against this big subdivision going in. 0 lot lines. You have a 2 to 5 acre lot, well, 2 to 5 acre ranchettes in the Los Meadows subdivision, and they're great. As soon as they go up for sale, people snatch them up right away. If you were to change that section or those back to 2 to 5 acre ranchettes, you'd have a better subdivision, less traffic. Nobody mentioned all the traffic on 1518. Even though 1518 is working on a widening now, it's still crazy in the mornings. Have y'all ever seen it backed up? It backs up from 78 to Schaefer Road, trying to get onto 78 at Randolph traffic. Not just Randolph, but people coming from 10 and from Lower Seguin. So I think y'all should have taken that into consideration, but it wasn't mentioned at y'all's meeting. I just wanted y'all to know property owners are very much against it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dennis, is there any hearing the residents submit in writing? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, minutes, consideration or action regarding the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 9th, 2020. Item number 2, resolution number 20R68. Consideration or action approving a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing expenditures in the amount not to exceed $121,179 with Grande Truck Center for a new fleet vehicle and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, ordinance number 20S17. Consideration or action approving an ordinance on a request to amend the official zone map by rezoning approximately 0.5 acres of land from single-family residential, that's R-2, to Main Street Mixed Use District, that's MSMU, located at 619 Main Street, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas, and this is our final reading. And item number 4, ordinance number 20S16. Consideration or action approving an ordinance on a request to amend the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 229 acres of the future land use map from mixed-use neighborhood and agricultural conservation land use to single-family residential land use designation, generally located approximately 6,000 feet east of the intersection between FM 1518 and Lower Seguin Road, also known as Bexar County Property Identification Numbers. That's number 309-419, number 309-811, number 310-011, and number 310-013, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas, and this is our final reading. Council, is there any of these items that need to be removed for separate action? Yes, Councilmember Scott.
I would like to, if I want to remove one, can we still vote on it after we discuss, yes or no? Do you know?
Yes, we'll still have to vote on it.
Okay, number 4.
Okay. Council, any others?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Dalla, second by Councilmember Brown. Council, any other questions? If not, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, we have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. We'll move on to discussion item number 4. Ordinance number 20-16. Consideration or action approving the ordinance on the request to amend the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 229 acres of future land use map from mixed-use neighborhood and agricultural conservation land use designation to single-family residential land use designation, generally located approximately 6,000 feet east of the intersection of 1518 and Lower Seguin Road. Mr. James, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. I'd be happy to answer questions. Again, what we...
Ms. Dunn?
Okay. More than a question, I wanted to make a comment. Is that appropriate? Can I do that, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. When we moved to Schertz, 3009 was a 2-lane road, and we moved here 23 years ago. We moved here because it was in the country, and it was very charming. We bought a very large lot in a subdivision, and in the back of it was a green belt. I was devastated when 10 years later the city rezoned it. Suddenly there's houses in back of me. That's part of growth. It's a double-edged blade. I'm not here to pontificate from on high. I'm here to say I love Schertz. I love the rural aspect. I love looking at the cows on the way to work. I transverse 1518 every single day going to work. It is a zoo. It is. We cannot stop the growth. We can only try to direct it. Since 2007, over 1,000 people a day have moved to Texas. That has continued unabated. I think in the past 2 years, it's 1,100 a day. It's a lot. And I think that because of what's going on in the country, we can expect more of that, not less. We can't control. This was also an issue when I was on EDC. We can't stop that growth. We can only try to control it and get desirable businesses or residences there. My consolation for myself, in back of our green belt, the owls moved away, we lost a lot of wildlife, but my consolation personally was at least there's houses and it's not a great big giant Walmart with the light shining in our backyard. So I wanted to go on the record that we didn't take this lightly. We spoke at great length. And for the record, Mr. James, last week there was quite a few of the actual property owners here, and I read the actual resolution verbatim. I wanted to make sure I was understanding the data correctly. I wasn't saying it to make a point. I was saying it to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. 70% of those, if you take out the one person who didn't, who was neutral, 70% wanted to sell their land for private residential. We're here to represent them as well. And so I did say, I'm asking you because I know you're a researcher as well.
Yes, ma'am.
I did say that was a small sample, but of the people that were here last week, what % of those represented the landowners in the plots that we are talking about? of those 8 or 9, however many there were?
I think only one was a property owner who spoke on behalf, I believe. Yeah, we may have had all 3, but I know one that I'm aware, but it could have been some of the others. But they were all represented here. I'm not sure who spoke, that
Okay.
one I recognize. But, that's fairly common to what we get. Certainly that's why we have the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission and what their role is. It's why we have the public hearing at City Council, is to let everybody who's interested show up, have their voice heard, and then council makes that decision, to help us go forward.
Thank you. Did we advertise that last week, that we were going to be discussing this? Was this?
So, yeah, we have to,
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted that, on the record, we did due diligence. We never try to blindside anybody, and it was on all the documents are on the website,
Yes,
too?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, council, any other questions?
And also, just to clarify, we also mail out to the surrounding property owners?
So we mailed out to every property owner within 200 feet prior to the public hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We published in the San Antonio Express 15 days prior to the first public hearing for the City Council meeting. That doesn't go to specific property owners, it's just the entire San Antonio Express as per the state law requirements.
So the mailouts go to the property addresses on record with Bexar County, correct?
So that map you saw originally within the ordinance of what you were talking about with the percentages of property owners that voted for it and voted against it and some are neutral to, that map that has that red line outside of the property owners or the subject property for the specific ordinance is the property, or are the properties within 200 feet of it that get notified. And those are the only ones that actually get direct mailed notice before the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay, council, any other questions? Yes, Councilman Scaglione.
Yeah, one of the things I had to consider is changing this to a single-family residency. R2 is a single-family residency. And Mr. James, how many square feet is in R2? Is it 10,000? The lot size?
So to be clear, this is an amendment, let's start coughing, an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Zoning will come next.
Right, and that's my point here. Okay, we didn't really rezone this out, and from what I saw with a lot of these garden homes, zero lot lines, I am not really fond of zero lot lines or anything else. I was last week I approved for the amendment. I didn't necessarily approve of the conceptual drawing that they provided us. It was a starting place, but quite frankly, I don't think it meets our vision or the view that we've established for developments on the south side of town. So it's a conceptual drawing. It isn't written in stone. And I'm hoping our staff is going to have at least one swipe, two swipes, three swipes, so that we get what we want on this plat of land. And I'm all for less density. I've said that before. What I just want to make clear is we didn't approve the plan that was presented. We did not approve that. It was conceptual and design only. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you. Council, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 20 as 16?
So moved. So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Dalla, second by Councilmember Hayward. Council, any other questions, comments? No, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, you have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll continue with discussion items and action items. Item number 5, ordinance number 20T21. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget to increase the budget allotment by $5,000 for the Hal Baldwin Scholarship, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is our first reading. Ms. Gonzalez, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So approval of this ordinance will increase the budget by $5,000 for the Hal Baldwin Scholarship Fund. The money will be transferred from the Hal Baldwin Scholarship Fund balance. Staff recommends approval of this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Council, floor is open for discussion.
Just like to say, Sarah, thank you so very much for what you did. And the rationale for providing the scholarships this year is because last year we didn't provide any scholarships. So $5,000 was still in the fund from last year, and they just decided to use it this year because well, quite frankly, the applications were outstanding this year in comparison to last year. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 20T21.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember, motion made by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Councilmember Larson. Okay, Councilmember Scott, you have some questions and comments?
Yes, sir. I was just wondering, what was the budget before the increase of the 5,000?
So for this fiscal year, it was $5,000.
5,000, so you want to do 10 for next year?
That's correct. That's what the scholarship committee recommended, and the fund balance has about $114,000 in it, so.
Okay, I'm a big fan of education. I have no problem with it. I was just looking for the figure of what it
Understood.
was. And then also, I know that, I hate showing my ignorance on this. To fund it, y'all have the golf thing, right? Or how do y'all fund this, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, so there is, it came from donations,
Okay.
but then also from the participation in the golf tournament as well.
Okay, yeah, I think you're doing a very good job. Thank you.
Okay, council, any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Councilmember Larson. No other comments? Let's call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6. Ordinance number 20T22. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2019 and 2020 budget to increase the budget allotment by $100,000 for the general fund maintenance services, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. Okay, Mr. Buckingham, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Manager. Let's see if we can get this open. All right. Yeah, we're here to ask for to increase our budget by $100,000 for the building maintenance line item, and this will be going to for some HVAC repairs that we've done at the Civic Center, removing of the radio tower at 3009, and recombering some funds that we paid out this year for a project that we did last year with the painting of the Hal Baldwin Memorial Complex. Just for some photos. Here's some of the units that we repaired at the Civic Center. Here is the broken base of the radio tower at 3009. Something we didn't anticipate. And here are some before and after pictures of the painting that we did at the municipal complex. And we are open for any discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buckingham. Council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Dalla.
Just a quick question on the tower that was removed. Are there plans to replace it, or do you have another option for your antennas?
That tower's been taken out of commission. It was obsolete. We had, I think it was Bracken's EMS was using it, and they just found another route for their communication. So we pulled out the equipment that we could salvage. Right now it's up on Gov Deals, but we need to take it down because it's a no-climb tower. So it's similar to the one we removed this year over at the City Hall. So similar type situation.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 20T22?
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Council, any comments, any questions? If not, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Yeah, 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll continue with a public hearing, ordinance number 20S19. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately .5 acres of land from single-family residential district, that's R-2, to neighborhood services district, that's NS, located at 603 Main Street, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas. Okay, Mr. Copley, floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, council. As the mayor said, this is a zone change application for 603 Main Street. So quickly for your reference, this is the property, the subject property, on the southwest corner of Randolph Avenue, and then this is Main Street here. It's this one right here. Prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, we sent out those public hearing notice mailers. We had 2 responses come back to us, one in favor of the zone change and one opposed the zone change. The resident that cited, or that voted against the zone change, cited their reason as they needed more information on the proposed development, and until they had that, they would reserve their recommendation for approval. So a little context on the original application, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission held on this item. So the application was noticed on your agenda and in the San Antonio Express as zone change from R2 to General Business District, GB, because the original application was for General Business District. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on June 10th made a recommendation of approval of a zone change to Neighborhood Services District by a 7-0 vote. At the public hearing, they expressed their concerns with the breadth of permitted uses in the General Business Zoning District that they felt were not adequately suited for the area to be designated as historic downtown Schertz. And after conversations with the property owner and staff, the commission decided that the Neighborhood Services Zoning District was more representative of the objective for historic downtown Schertz than GB, due to their heavier regulation of the higher intensity land uses. So what does the comp plan say about the area? This entire block, as you can see, is Main Street Commercial, also known as historic downtown Schertz. As you know, the objective for historic downtown Schertz is to draw in local independent businesses and use the existing buildings on Main Street to redevelop into those businesses in order to create a unique destination. This is most typically done through the Main Street Mixed Use Zoning District. However, the MSMU district does not allow the restaurant land use by right, and the property owner's goal for development is to redevelop the existing home that is at 603 Main Street into that local business, or that local restaurant. So even though the proposed application isn't to Main Street mixed use, it still fulfills those objectives of the comp plan through the neighborhood services zone change. This is the zoning map. On the left is the current. As you can see, the subject property, again in green, is surrounded by these single-family homes, the R2 zoning district, and these sections of public right-of-way, as well as this commercial corner at Main Street and Randolph Avenue. It's 3 areas zoned general business. The zone change to neighborhood services would not have an adverse impact on the adjacent development, on that adjacent commercial corner, as well as the rest of the commercial properties that expand down Main Street, as well as the land here that's designated in the future for Main Street commercial. With that information, staff is recommending approval of the zone change to Neighborhood Services District at 603 Main. Staff agrees with P&Z that the permitted land uses within the Neighborhood Services District are compatible with the vision for historic downtown Schertz. Plus, the property owner is willing to zone change to NS instead of GB. The Neighborhood Services District also allows the property owner to still maintain those development goals originally had in the application to redevelop that house into the local restaurant. And those goals also match the objectives for historic downtown Schertz. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this item is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject? Second notice for anyone, any comments regarding this public hearing? Final notice for comments regarding this public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Thank you. Council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Dollar?
Saw the video of the meeting, and kudos to the Planning and Zoning and Chairman Outlaw on making that recommendation from general business to neighborhood services. We're investing over $2 million in Main Street, and it certainly doesn't make sense to rezone properties that include uses that we're trying not to have on Main Street. And as you guys went through that discussion, there was a mention about having a second Main Street mixed-use category, and I hope staff will follow up with that and make sure that we get that done.
Of course. Do you want to speak on it?
Sure. Just as a point of clarification, we discussed it with the Main Street Committee, which met last week. We met with the Main Street Committee that I believe met last week, and the general direction there was, rather than complicated, would be to amend the Main Street mixed-use district to add a restaurant and a tavern, which is essentially our bar district, to the MSMU. We didn't have any other items for P&Z tomorrow, so we would anticipate taking that to P&Z in a few weeks and then running it back to council. Likely, I think this applicant, the zoning being approved lets him move forward with this project. Once that MSMU district is modified, he would likely reapply. There's not a charge for it. We'd rerun it back through and then rezone him to Main Street mixed use. So yes, sir.
No, it's a good job on everybody's part, and just one final comment. I told you I'd make you get up.
You did.
Council, any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Scott.
Oh, my question was answered.
Okay. What kind of restaurant, do we know?
What kind of restaurant?
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly. I know it's a local restaurant is what he talked about.
Are we going to have any, are there any parameters for what it should look like? And for example, like whenever I went to Jackson Hole, even the brand-new restaurants and all the brand-new businesses, they have the old Western look, just so it was thematic and it stayed authentic. And since this is the Schertz Historical District, is it all going to, are we striving for congruency, or was that discussed?
So there were exterior construction material standards that we had in our Unified Development Code that were removed last year, September 2019, based on House Bill 2439, I believe, that changed the, and I'm not sure about that number, but it removed the city's ability to require exterior construction materials, so like masonry or glazing or something like that, that were more stringent than a national model code, so what you would see in like the International Building Code. So those sections are no longer within our UDC, as they are no longer in the base development codes of any city or municipality in Texas. And I don't believe there are any extra specific material standards or facade or beauty standards, as you would think about it. As
is that applicable to historical districts? Like when Selma put up their stagecoach thing, it kind of looked like, back then, or what have you?
I think there was some.
Or is that just across the board?
If you want to talk about it, you can. I don't think there's anything in there. There's not
Thank you. Good question, Councilwoman. So just to be clear, we talk about our historic Main Street area. We don't have a historic district like San Antonio has or things like that. I think the direction from council has been, let's try to use a carrot approach rather than a stick approach. And so we have incentive programs. We have the Main Street Mixed Use District. I will say that having talked to the applicant quite a bit, he really likes that building that was used as a residential home, and so he really wants to kind of keep the character of it. He made us during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was talk about not wanting to pave the front yard for a parking lot because he wanted to maintain that look. So my understanding is he plans to go in, maintain the exterior look as a house, which is really the selling point, but just have the use be a restaurant. You'll probably notice some other changes, some decks and things like that, I would guess. But yeah, he's been very clear, hasn't wanted to alter that look to not be in keeping with it. And again, we've done that with our Main Street, our historic grant program. Part of, to get that, the Historic Preservation Committee and Council look at it and say, if you want this particular grant, you need to keep it inconsistent. So we don't have any concern right now. I think much like probably the reminder of, hey, we need to tweak our Main Street Mixed Use District, that would be something we'd want to watch. And if it ever became a problem, we may need to impose a regulation. But at this time, hasn't been an issue. We'd prefer to stick with the carrot approach.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, council members, any other questions? Other questions? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 20S19?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilmember Dalla, second by Councilmember Larson. Council, any other questions, comments? If not, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide us the roll call confirmation for items number 1, consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3, and discussion items 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Yes,
Ms.
Mayor.
Dennis.
Consent agenda items 1 through 3. Motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 4, ordinance number 20S16 on final reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 5, ordinance number 20T21 on first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Scagliola, seconded by Councilmember Larson. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 6, ordinance number 20T22 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Scagliola, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 7, ordinance number 20S19 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Larson. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. We'll move on to our workshop, item number 8. That's a workshop discussion and possible action on ordinance number 20H18 and updating our declaration of local disaster. Chief, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right, it's good to be back to talk about our COVID update again, and just wanted to get into talking about our numbers a little bit. You know, some new information coming out today that you know, the mayor and I had discussed this morning, and just wanted to kind of give an update to you. So last time we kind of had an update, Guadalupe County was reporting 241 cases. You know, we were informed over the weekend that, you know, it could be as many as 90 that are still pending. I just spoke with them earlier just to give you the latest number. So of that, we ended up at 275 cases. Of those, 6 of those are in Schertz, is where Schertz is coming out in the numbers. And so that we were at 8 active cases in Schertz, just to give you the kind of difference between them. We were at 34 total, 8 of those active, and so now that will put us at 14 active cases at this time for Schertz. And the county will be showing up 94 active, 181 recovered, and the county did report its first COVID death last week as well. Getting into Bexar County, just to kind of give some of the situation around us. So 3,000 new cases the past 2 weeks was reported in Bexar County. That brings the total to 7,156 cases in the Bexar County. And then Sunday they had their highest one-day total of 538. Some information coming out of Comal County was again 346 cases, and then they did report this week that they were closing the public health to citizens coming in because they had had 2 employees test positive for COVID. And so again, just wanted to kind of point out situational awareness around us. So dishes, Region 8, does not include Bexar County or Comal County, but just to kind of show you what kind of numbers they're dealing with and what kind of paperwork they're dealing with in trying to do these investigations. So from last Thursday until today, they had 1,200 cases reported in dishes, Region 8. So just a lot of investigations, a lot of paperwork to deal with as they go through that. And so I just wanted to point that out. So you'll start to see some discrepancies in numbers, and I think the mayor will talk a little bit about that coming up, but we'll come back to that. Going on to the state data, just to kind of show, this is kind of what the governor put out yesterday. You know, the last half of May, hospitalizations were about 1,600 a day, and as of yesterday, they were up to about 3,200. Again, we've talked a lot about the positivity rate in this meeting and reporting on that, and so it was at 4.5%, and now it's at 9%. And again, these numbers are for the state. You know, I've seen other numbers, you know, around the area that are higher than that, but that's the state average right now. And so the daily positive rate had went from 1,500 a day to 3,500 a day. You know, again, all these are state averages. So again, just wanted to point out kind of the situational awareness for hospitalizations in Bexar County. That's the best information that we get. So I just kind of went back to show you kind of June 1st, right before we kind of started really opening up into phase 3. They had 98 patients in the hospital, 56 in ICU, and 20 on ventilators. And fast forward to now, there's 482 patients in the hospital, 129 in the ICU, and 61 on ventilators, just to kind of give you the hospitalization rate that's going on in our area. Again, city services, just to kind of review real quick, June 8th, the playgrounds and Pickerel Park Pool opened, Aquatic Center. The Civic Center has opened for some events as well. Again, just still looking at that data around July 1st to open the library for inside visitors of some sort. And again, Wendy Swan still just not opening yet and don't have a date really for that yet. The Animal Adoption Center will be reopening to normal operations once they get the completion of the AC recommissioning project that they've got going on this week as well. Senior Center, still just no change there. We're still just kind of waiting for phase 4 where we can look at some better dates for that once we kind of see, especially now, what happens with the numbers. So again, I just wanted to go through the disaster declarations kind of around us. So again, we've got 20H18 expires tonight that we had put in place last time. Just wanted to kind of give you an update around us. So Guadalupe County, due to all the number spikes and stuff today, they extended the disaster declaration today at the Commissioner's Court. And they did just essentially change that language to put it in line with the governor's order. So as long as the state's under a disaster declaration, those dates just keep extending with the governor's disaster declarations in Guadalupe County now. Bexar County, again, put in a executive order number 10 that expires on June 30th, but that's the one that is getting a lot of attention now because it required it required businesses to require masks in Bexar County, and so that's in effect now. And then again, the state of Texas, Governor Abbott extended on June 11th for 30 days the disaster declaration for the state. And so that's kind of what I've got as far as the disaster declaration goes. And again, just kind of left it for discussion at this point. If, we want to talk about some language changes or something as far as being in line with the governor's order, or if we want to extend out to, July 7th or something, we just kind of left this as a discussion item. And that's, turn it over to the mayor.
Hey, thank you, Chief. Council, we rely on data, logic, and our hearts to make decisions for our community. And within our region, the data is reflecting that we're having an increase in testing. And with that, we have an increase in cases. But we also have a decrease in the number of deaths that occur per week. And our condolences go out to, and our deepest sympathy to those family members. But what concerns me now is the numbers that are coming out of Austin. Because if we were to test 100% of our residents, and we haven't gotten confirmation, they are counted as cases, even though they're not positive. They're cases. So the numbers out of Austin is not a true reflection of what our community is going through. Also, the number of cases is also not a true indicator of what's going on in our community. It's the number of active cases that we have to look at, because the case numbers will continue to increase as the testing continues. But we have to consider all the factors before we make decisions, and that's why I was going to request that council approve an extension of the expiration date from June 23rd to July 7th to our next meeting, because I really don't know what these numbers are saying regarding Bexar County or New Braunfels. It's hard to fathom that 30,000 new cases appeared over the week, or 500 just the other day. But I want to err on the side of caution and have that authority from you all so that we can go ahead and continue to get our reimbursements. And I think our declaration is strictly in line with the governor. No additional, no changes or anything.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. So with that, council, floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Can you bring up the slide with the hospitalizations? Mr. Mayor, I agree with a lot of your comments. To me, obviously as we test more people, you can't go by the number of tests administered or the numbers of while we're waiting to get test results. And as we test more people, you're probably going to see more confirmed cases. To me, the concerning part is, part of our city is in Bexar County, and if you look at these numbers from Bexar County, this is not about testing. This is not about someone that may have come in contact with it and has been atypical or asymptomatic and not gotten ill. But if you look at these numbers here, in like a month's time, we get 98 patients to 212 to 42. The increase in the level of people that need to go to the ICU, the number of people on ventilators. Obviously, there's a medical concern out there. And again, I understand fully that some people want to argue about the numbers and want to argue about testing, and they want to argue about opening up their establishment, and they're upset that they can't get their nails done or their hair cut or go out and have a cold beer. And I'm certainly not going to tell someone what they can and cannot do. That's an individual decision that they're going to have to work on. But, I mean, these numbers are increasing. So there is an issue out there that we have to be aware of. I agree with you. I think we need to keep the emergency declaration in place. I think it would be more prudent for the city to turn around and do like the county did and just link it to the governor's declaration. We've said before that we can, at any meeting, make a determination to cancel it. But to turn around and just extend it to the week before, or the week, so many days before the governor, and then re-engage on the 7th and say, well, let's extend it again. Let's go to the side of caution, link it to the state of Texas, link our emergency declaration to whatever the government or the governor's end date is, and if things change and we feel better that we can terminate it, we can certainly at any given meeting go ahead and terminate the response. But this way, if we link it to the state of Texas, as long as Texas is under a state of emergency, then we're linked to that and we're covered with regards to financial reimbursement and the general considerations of the state of Texas.
Okay, Councilmember Scott?
Yes. My aim is never to argue about the numbers. It's to you. I'm not saying that you were suggesting that. I like numbers and I like them a lot because when you have the best research and the best data, you can make the best informed decisions. So you're not making fear-based decisions. You're not having a personal or political agenda in there. You're making it based on the facts, which is the way to make it. And so I like to err on the side of caution. I think the government is best that governs least. I think that some decisions should certainly be left up to the individual. When I'm looking at these numbers, there was an article in the Express News that I pulled up today, and I just took a screenshot in case. The ventilators looks like it's problematic. It looks like Bear is at 76% of their ventilators. Does this sound about right to you, Officer Cade? Yeah, the beds are 28%. So it looks like we have plenty of wiggle rooms on the beds, the ventilators, and I know that there's some in surrounding areas that we might be able to use or what have you. The hospitalizations, that is indeed problematic. It certainly is. I do want to urge everybody to put this in context between in the year 2017 and 18, that flu season. I want to remind y'all 30,000 Texans died, and that was with a vaccine. There is a vaccine for the flu. People still died because of it. We didn't shut down the economy and keep everybody shut in, and the deaths in Texas are roughly about 1/10 of that at this time. So I'm saying we need context, not fear. But I applaud Schertz for taking the steps that are taken, and thank goodness we're opening. As a teacher, I'm going to express a little personal frustration here. I'm a big fan of the governor. I thank God we're in Texas and we're not shuttered in like up north, and I'm putting it out there. I'm telling you what I think. And so that's very good. But as a teacher, I was very frustrated with, well, we're going to come back, at the end of March. We're coming back in April. We're coming back at the beginning of May. And by the fourth one, no, we're shut down. It was devastating. And I'm saying that because I don't want to just follow with whatever the Texas governor does, although admittedly I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's doing a very good job with the information he has. I do think he's trying to keep everybody happy, which is very impossible. You cannot do that. It ain't going to happen. So you have to do the best for your community and your state. I'm much more on board with what the mayor said about it going to the 7th, and then we'll wait and see from there. And I did have a question for you. My question was, so these are the Bexar County numbers. What about the Guadalupe County numbers for hospitalizations and the beds and the ventilators in our own county, of which I think about 80% of Schertz lives in Guadalupe County? Is that correct or no? What do you, if you had to guesstimate?
I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but it's probably at least in the 70
about 7 probably.
Range. But basically, from what we've seen so far, most of the patients we've had have been transported into San Antonio.
Okay. So do we have the accommodations in case there was? I would love to hear what they were saying. Were y'all answering the question? Okay.
They're just discussing, there's about 5,000 residents that live in Bexar County.
Okay.
Maybe 1,000 more in Comel. So the bulk, 35-ish thousand, are in Guadalupe County.
It is maybe. Oh, no, that was fine. So it's close to 80%, yeah. So are we equipped if there is an emergency do we have facilities here to treat people, or?
We've got a facility here off of Schertz Parkway, but it's
Most of it's going to there?
situational based on, you know, the patients, and then Schertz EMS transfers a lot of those patients out when it reaches a certain level, and those predominantly go to Bexar County hospitals whenever they transfer out of there.
Okay.
So just, I don't have the numbers for Guadalupe County just because most everything we do all goes into Bexar County.
Yeah, and Bexar County has amazing medical facilities. It's a powerhouse on the medical. It really is good. That's good. There was something else in the back of my mind. I think it's kind of buried under there because I was following what you were saying about the hospitalization. I mean, how many hospitals we have.
Yeah, the main hospital that, you know, we would have in Guadalupe County would be in Seguin, and just with us being on this side, everything goes to Bexar County.
Yep. Okay. That's good for right now.
Okay.
For me, and
Okay.
I might have one with the caveat I might, you know, need to when my other question comes up.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla?
How many cases, again, were you saying that we have active in Schertz right now?
So we'll go to, we went to 14 today.
Okay, so the website's showing 8 as of this morning, and so we're adding
Yeah,
6 more
we'll
today.
update it. We were waiting to update it after I spoke tonight.
Right. You know, a couple other kind of random questions, I guess. With the Civic Center being open, I've had a couple people ask me about the unofficial prom that's planned for Thursday over there. And in speaking with Mr. Kelm before the meeting, it's that we're requiring them to comply with the state requirements of 50% occupancy, and
Yes,
what else are we doing to make sure that those people are going to be safe?
Yeah, those are still in effect. I'll get Linda to come up. She's over the Civic Center bookings.
I'm going to touch that, sorry. Yes, so we are open at the Civic Center for 50% capacity. We do have several guidelines in place that we ask the renters to follow, and it's they have signed an acknowledgement of risk, and it includes all of the guidelines that they need to follow. We have limited seating capacity at tables to 6 per table. We space the tables 6 feet out. We do ask that they socially distance, and if they can't, they wear a mask. We do ask that they screen their attendees prior to them coming, so asking them to take their temperature, kind of if they have symptoms, the same sort of things that we're asking, you know, our staff to do. Our staff has to wear masks. They're not in the room during the event. A very limited interaction, using a lot of cell phones to discuss things with the renter day of, and then sanitizing the rooms before and after the events.
Okay. And while you're up here, real quick, let's recap what the plans are for 4th of July and how we're going to keep people safe there.
That would be parks. Let me have Brian answer that one.
Sure. So we have 2 big components. Again, we have a couple smaller components. So we have the T-shirt decorating contest. We have the Chalk the Walk on the driveway. And again, the assumption is people do those in their own homes by themselves and, you know, whatnot. We're going to put up additional banners and flags along Schertz Parkway. But the two kind of big events are taking the parade to the people. And so, again, you got an email, I think, yesterday morning about that. Again, so what we would do is sort of take this relatively small parade. We may pick up some kind of private businesses along the way in vehicles. But the idea is that we would drive through the neighborhoods, that folks could sit out in their front yard if they happen to be on the route, or kind of get a spot not too close to anybody else along that route and just watch as the parade of council kind of came by. And so what we're trying to avoid is what we normally have with the parade, which is a big long parade, a lot of floats, everybody having to come out and pack close together. And so we would encourage folks to social distance. The other element is the fireworks. And again, normally we do the big event at Park Royal Park. We shoot them up from Cibolo Creek, and we draw a huge crowd for that. This year, what we're going to do are 3 smaller fireworks displays, limited area for people to go actually watch the parade. We were kind of holding off promoting where they could go do that from their car, in part because a lot of the communities around us have canceled their events. So what we don't want to do is be the event for everybody in the region, and we get overwhelmed, folks other part of the region coming in. But the idea is to do 3 smaller fireworks display. You may not quite be able to see the one near you quite as well, but the idea is you can kind of catch a glimpse or kind of park in a particular area away from everybody else and watch it. So we're scaling down to try to social distance, but again, encourage everybody to social distance and not congregate. But again, one of the concerns we had is as everyone around us is canceling their events, not bringing everybody up here. So we're kind of making decisions with that in mind. That's correct. As far as we know, the folks that typically do it, it's Schertz and the Braunfels are the only ones still doing theirs.
So with the parking of the vehicles for the parks around the fire area where we're going to be shooting the fireworks, or we're going to restrict people to staying in their vehicles, or
that is the idea, to restrict people to stay in their vehicles going forward. But yeah, again, we'll try to manage that as best we can. The idea is keep people in their vehicles. But again, part of our concern with everything being canceled is just a mass of folks coming up and parking all over.
Yeah.
Some of that's inevitable, I think.
Let me talk to that question. I don't think the plan is to have our police, going down the road and policing that. That's going to be up to the residents. I just don't see a way to do that and not make a mess of it. So that's the plan. They're going to have to do that. Now, maybe if we see something gross, then we see 100 people or something out of their cars, then we can do that. And this is also going to be the last time we talk about this with you all before the event. So if we need to make any alterations, we probably ought to do that tonight as a group. Otherwise, we're going to execute. We won't have time to get back together.
yeah, I mean, people will have to self-restraint to comply with that. I think the biggest concern that I'm seeing right now over it is the traffic, and that as long as we make sure that PD is aware of it and is planning for it, because I agree with you that there's a potential for a lot more traffic than what we would expect to show up because nothing else is going on around us.
And I think that's the big thing. Can we kind of talk about the pros and cons of things? Would not surprise us. We get some complaints from Schertz residents saying I couldn't see from where I was. There wasn't enough information about where I could go to watch it. And a bit of that, again, is limited by the fact that everybody else has canceled theirs. So too much promotion of come here, we get overwhelmed before our residents even show up, with folks coming from all over. So we'll do the best we can. And again, as before, hopefully a lot of people like it. Some people won't be quite as happy, but we'll go from there.
Can't please everybody on that. I guess one of the big things that we can do is share information. I had an exchange with Dr. Brown earlier in the week about putting out some more information on the website, and y'all made some changes on that, and I appreciate that. I'd like to maybe think about the weekly report that you send out to us, to maybe include some components of that as well on the COVID website that are appropriate to what's going on. Again, sharing the information I think is one of the most important things that we can do, and the more that we can put out there and the easier we can make it for people to find, the better it is. I agree with the comments about us needing to make our resolution concurrent with how the state's doing theirs and just let it automatically extend as appropriate. And the big thing for me always has been on this is that this is about trying to reduce the stress on the hospital system, and it's becoming concerning on it, and I hope more people will take more appropriate measures to protect themselves and their families and prevent this from spreading. But and I hope we don't get to the point where we have to look at taking additional actions. But I don't know, the trend isn't looking real good right now. And that's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I too am in alignment with Mayor Pro Tem Davis and Councilmember Dalla about aligning with the governor's declaration. I got an email recently wanting to know why we haven't already made face masks mandatory within the city, like they have in Bexar County. Or quite frankly, I wouldn't vote for making mandatory or face masks mandatory without having a serious discussion first with our Chamber of Commerce and our business community. I don't think the action would warrant what's happening out there right now. Just to make the point, what is our procedure if there is an outbreak in the city of Schertz? If a couple of two or three cases, like happened at the YMCA, they closed down the YMCA, but how do we get notified when there is an outbreak? And then what is the city doing in response to that outbreak?
So that's a situational question, just because there's so many facets to that question. Because it could be business related, it could be nursing home related. So there's a lot of facets to that question there.
Well, let's take it one step at a time. A McDonald's, fine restaurant. What would happen in a situation like that?
So in a situation where it's, let's say a restaurant, for example, would become, or somebody reported there was infected, or let's say it's an employee or something, what would happen at that point is once the city got notified of that, then basically, in this case, we'll say Dishes would start that contact tracing investigation. So they would then give us information that we could put out, basically requesting, whoever was at X restaurant on X date at X time to X time, something like that, to get that information out to them, to get back in touch with Dishes to provide their information. Essentially, the guidance that's out now is still essentially 15 minutes, within 6 feet of a infected person for, 10 to 15 minutes. And so even in that restaurant setting like that, it's still a small window of what an outbreak is. So when you say outbreak, I take that to mean that we did that contact tracing investigation and we found 6 other people was near that or at tables with that employee, and then they got it, and then the table next to them got it. And so that's what would turn out of that contact tracing. Essentially, the system that's in place now is the state is going to pick up that contact tracing, and they're going to start making those phone calls and notifications and asking for that information based purely on numbers. If it's just 1 or 2, then they're not going to go to that level of extreme. It's going to be numbers based to the state, and I can't tell you what that number is because that's not, for us to decide. But essentially, that's what would happen in that type of situation. Just like you've seen in the nursing home, with one positive case, within 2 days, we had 150 people tested at that facility. And so depending on the numbers of the restaurant or the facility, that's essentially what would happen is the fire department and EMS are both able to go out into the community under that governor's disaster declaration based on information available at the time. So the governor drew the line this time at licensed nursing facilities. They can always change that, but based on that, we're able, because of the personnel we have trained in Schertz EMS and Schertz Fire, we're able to quickly get out into the community and start doing mass testing like that. I think both of our nursing homes, were done within a week of the one positive test that we reported previously.
And no additional cases were found?
No, sir.
Okay. Does the city, you in particular, have the authority to close down a business and mandate cleaning before they're reopening?
So I personally don't have that authority depending on what it is, but that would be something that would fall under the mayor's orders of a public health emergency.
Okay.
That would be something that the mayor would have the authority to do.
And we provided him with that authority?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to me you've got a big task on your shoulders, and Chief, I'm just so appreciative that you're standing up there at the mic fielding these questions. Thank you so very much for your service. That's all I have, sir.
Council, any other comments? You know, Dr. Scagliola mentioned face mask. We looked into face masks. If our city were to make face masks mandatory, we would have to provide the face mask to all these businesses. So, and even if we did pass it, do we have the resources to enforce it? We don't. And then we also thought about the 911 calls that would come in. You know, our police department, they have more critical issues to respond to instead of just someone calling about not having a mask on. So, well, we look at all these issues during our conversations, our meetings. With that, if there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion from the chair here. Motion to extend the expiration date from June 23rd to coincide with the state of Texas.
Mayor.
Yes. Yes, Councilmember Scott, yes.
Yes. So the other question I had for you was, number one, why are the testing numbers getting counted as active?
So if I could speak briefly to what you're going to see, and probably a good thing to just kind of make council aware of as you see, and I've actually got a meeting tomorrow with dishes over this topic, so I don't have the best answer for you right now, but I could give some information on you're going to see numbers that are different coming out of the county than is being reported like on Dish's website and stuff, and that's because they're shifting with how they are handling those, just because of the numbers I showed you earlier that, you know, they had 1,200 cases come in from last Thursday to today, so they're having to shift on how they deal with positive cases. And so it's been reported that previously, like if you went to, like the mayor's saying, if you went up to the minor emergency clinic and you had some symptoms of COVID and you got tested, that was reported to dishes, and then that was a possible case. And so now you're starting to see the word possible and confirmed. And so right now, the county has taken the approach that we're going to report on what we know to be true, which is confirmed cases. And so that's why in some instances you'll see numbers that are actually 100 off because they're reporting on more potential cases that are not yet confirmed. They still have to go through the process, get the actual confirmation, do some more work from the epidemiologist at Dishes. And so that's the direction that the county has taken when we've had some conversations with them, is we're going to put out true numbers that we know are confirmed cases, because just like now when it was reported that we may have up to 90 cases over the weekend, but here we sit today and, you know, we didn't get 90 confirmations, so that means some of them wasn't negative whenever it went through that process. So that's our take right now, is we're going to report numbers that are factual and confirmed.
Thank you. This is very helpful. I'm not trying to split hairs. I'm trying to talk about methodology and systems, and because they're overwhelmed, so they have to do something with them, so they're putting them there for the time being. is what my understanding of what you just said was. Number two, I know it's pie in the sky, but I would love to see what % of the people being tested positive are asymptomatic. Like, a lot of people have either no symptoms or very minor symptoms, and that would be very useful because that would give a truer picture of what's going on. A lot of sports figures, as you've seen, the young people are getting tested and they're shocked. They didn't even know they had it, So this can happen. I'm not saying it's not a serious disease. I'm saying it can happen. And that would really help get a true picture of what it is. Finally, last but not least, what are we doing for antibody testing? When Stanford University did theirs on the general population, they tested 1,300, which is a reasonable and robust sample, and they found up to 40% of the population had antibodies, meaning they already had the virus and they were better, and then they get the herd immunity. Are we doing anything as a city, or is Bexar County doing anything for antibody testing?
So there's several offices that have started offering that. Some med clinics have started offering that. Us as a city, the only thing that we've really done thus far is Schertz EMS. When they do blood drives, they have added that as an option whenever you give blood at a blood drive, is my understanding.
Okay, well, thanks. I think that would be that'd be a good selling point to find out. I think it would be a relief for many people if they found out a significant % of the population had developed antibodies, and it would ease some of the fear moving forward. And so my other question is for the mayor. So are you going to make a motion to do the...
Yes, the motion is on the floor. I haven't heard a second.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Scagliola. Yes. Any other comments or questions? No, let's go ahead and call for the vote then.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you, Council. Okay, we'll continue with item number 9, workshop discussion on possible action regarding the mobile food license reciprocity. And I think Chief Bain.
Is it? Oh.
I just wanted to introduce Rebecca Vera. She's our inspector. She's doing a fantastic job, and she's very, very well qualified. She's been with us a few months now?
9 months.
9 months now, and she's a really good member of our team. I don't think you've briefed the council before, right?
Have not, first time.
Okay, so this is your chance to hear Rebecca speak on this issue.
Can you speak up? I didn't hear her name.
Good evening, Rebecca Vera. Okay, so I have to say the word reciprocity out loud because then I'll fumble it. So, mobile food unit reciprocity. So, what this would entail is an agreement between local and regional authorities where everyone would join in and agree to accept one permit throughout the region, or vice versa, where one unit was licensed in one jurisdiction and that license was honored in other jurisdictions. So these are the applicable codes that apply to licensing mobile units. These are just the Texas administrative codes that give us, the regulatory authorities, control over mobile food units and fixed food establishments, temporary events, anything else that would fall under that particular area. So why reciprocity? So these are a few of the highlights. regulations for mobile food units could be uniform throughout the area. That way, units would know the rules, what was expected of them throughout the agencies that accepted that one permit. One of the big pluses is that currently mobile food units have to register and permit in each jurisdiction that they operate, because through that Texas Administrative Code on that first slide, each regulatory authority should hold a permit over anybody vending in their area. So by streamlining that particular process, we can work together with fire or any other departments that require a permit. That way, that business owner is only coming in once to see one appointment. Also, the plus for a mobile food unit, this would greatly increase the size of their customer base. By utilizing that one permit, they're able to cross over from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, say hop over from Fiesta to a special event in Schertz without further permitting. So this slide is kind of repetitive in the end, so these are just a few of the items that we'll hit on. So just for the money's sake, this is what we did in inspections and revenue for each one of the mobile food units that we have registered here in Schertz. So you see we almost doubled in the last 2 years. Mobile food units are a great way to start a food business. I don't know if anybody's in the food business, but it is a much smaller investment than a brick and mortar type establishment. So here's a quick table for cost comparison. So you'll see Schertz is right in line with all the other cities that are our size. And then you'll notice that the fire permit is only required by Schertz and San Antonio. So those are the only two that have fees associated with those. The reason for the price range in San Antonio is because there are varying levels of permitting involved in San Antonio or offered. You can start off with a small prepackaged business, which is the 103. Everything comes prepackaged. All you're doing is opening a box and handing out ice cream, soda, chips, things like that. All the way to $309, which is a kitchen on wheels, which means that you can have a restaurant on wheels, basically. All right, the fire department. Okay. Okay, so here's a little bit of additional information. So currently the City of Austin has entered into agreements with the unincorporated areas of Travis County, along with some smaller bedroom communities around them. Now, just to be sure that you understand, this is not reciprocity. This is the City of Austin doing all the work through contract with each one of these municipalities and agencies. Currently, Bexar County does accept licenses from other licensing agencies, but it's not reciprocity. It is them accepting someone else's permit. But due to issues with permits and vendors operating outside their scope of their permit, this practice will stop July 10th of this year. Okay, so here's the meat and potatoes, the pros. Pros are that mobile food units would only need to be familiar with that one set of code, and they would be able to go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction without having to have additional burdensome licensing agents. Some agencies require additional items such as background checks, water sampling. So all those would be agreed to through anybody participating with us in this program. Again, mobile food units would be able to streamline their licensing and only pay one fee, which, as you can tell, some of them do get quite expensive, especially if you have more than one. And a mobile food unit would increase their chance of success. So starting a new business is always rough. You have to have a target audience, recipes, food, brand. It's a mini restaurant, so you increase your chances of success if you're able to increase the area that you operate in. So some of the cons. So these are some of the things that we've discussed, that each regulatory authority that would participate in this proposal would have to adopt the same uniform code, so that way mobile vendors would be able to benefit from having that one code that they have to operate from. Currently, we don't have shared technology or a way to communicate important information about vendors. So just a quick interpretation of that. If I held a license from, let's just say, the city of New Braunfels, and I was operating in Bexar County, currently Bexar County accepts that permit. But say for some reason New Braunfels suspended or inactivated that permit, I'm still being able to operate in Bexar County because I have the paper. I have a sticker. New Braunfels isn't going to come and confiscate that license from me. So there is that. Not all government agencies perform fire inspections. That's a really important part of it. We do have a little bit of lost revenue if we were to give up our license fee, and most importantly, we would lose oversight as to who's operating in our city. So the recommendation, if we were to move forward, would be to work with the city of San Antonio, because San Antonio is more in line with what we look for, both with health and fire.
Hey, thanks. So just kind of brief on the inspections, obviously verifying that vehicle complies with the fire code is what we're looking for when we send our inspector out to look at, these food truck inspections, verifying that, the fire safety devices are in place, extinguishers, fire hoods, suppression systems have been inspected and installed, that they work at the time whenever we're inspecting those. And then again, just showing you here a recent food truck explosion that occurred in San Marcos. We got lucky that it wasn't a crowded evening where people was there, but nonetheless we have also had conversations with the military, JBSA before has come over and talked to us as well about some of the fire inspections on there. So I believe it was their intent that the fire department on JBSA was looking to start doing fire inspections as well because of this. And again, just, whenever they're driving down the road, moving around and bumping around, things shake loose and connections cause distortion and things deteriorate in there. So that's why it's good to get those looked at each year, and all those things coming loose like that and, disengaging, just become dangerous where you can get leaks, gas leaks, electrical sparks easily can occur from that standpoint. And so that's pretty much the fire inspection side of it. When we go into just kind of showing about the fire code, again, not all agencies we've talked to perform fire inspections on there, and so we're just showing here the ones that do perform fire inspections are San Antonio, Schertz, and Bexar County, and then again around us, Selma, Live Oak, Cibolo, UC, and Garden Ridge do not do fire inspections on food trucks inspections. So that's pretty much what I've got there. So
That's it. Okay. Okay, Councilmember Larson, you asked for this topic. I'll let you go first.
Yes, I asked for something similar to this. This is a very thorough way of going about it. So just to give some background, I have been in the food service industry for a long time. I've never owned a food truck. I don't currently own a food truck. All of my locations have been permanent locations, and they made me get a COO and all that good stuff. But I guess if we can, some of these slides will be helpful and help me explaining to council what I think I've clearly done a poor job explaining previously. But can you go back to the list of fees that you had in the PowerPoint? It's the next one there. It's just an example, and some of this is a little outdated. I think if you go to San Antonio, it says just in big, bold letters on the headline that every mobile food unit will pay a fee of $300 plus 3% surcharge. And the fee is not necessarily the biggest thing. Honestly, there's a funny story here, and I want to be careful because I want to be respectful of everybody, but I thought, I've been doing this for 4 years. There's a lot of times I've tried to fight for some changes in regulation, and I thought, oh, here's a really common sense, simple, easy thing that we can do. But nothing in government is easy or simple. So we have the list of food permit here. Honestly, I don't need to fact check all of these. I've looked at them before. I don't have a food truck, so I don't know all of them. But ultimately, what you're seeing is if you live in the region, if you live in San Antonio and you want to start a mobile food business, for example, you have a population pool of 2.5, 3 million. I don't know what it is, according to the latest census. And you're going to pay $300. You're going to get inspected by the health department and the fire department, and you're going to be able to serve that entire community. If you have a similar business and you are in Cibolo or you're in Schertz or in your universal city, in order to have a population demographic anywhere near that size or to participate in local communities, you have to go to every single one of these entities and get an inspection. And it doesn't make sense for the city, and it doesn't make sense for the operator. One, there's just a bunch of unnecessary fees for doing duplicate work of things that have already been inspected. Second, community experts are performing work. When we're talking about we have resource crunch constantly in the city of Schertz, we're performing work to inspect something that's already been inspected by 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 different entities, depending on where this food truck operator works and conducts their business. An example would be Kona Ice, for example. So they're paying an unnecessary fee as an operator. They're having to schedule this appointment. They're having to go in and get inspected. But it's being inspected by the same kind of professionals no matter where you go. In fact, as just a point of information, our mobile food unit ordinance that we have is copy and pasted from the city of San Antonio. We did not write a new one. There's not a space, there's not a letter, there's not a character different, with one exception. We've removed the mobile cart for hot dog carts. We just deleted that. Nothing else is modified. So we trust the regulatory authority and wisdom of the communities around us. In fact, in a meeting that we had earlier, it's my understanding that you actually were hired from the city of San Antonio.
I am, 18 years.
Very, very glad to have you. And we kind of talked about if we were looking for an inspector and they had on their resume that they had 18 years experience at the city of San Antonio, that would unquestionably be a positive for us. No one would say, oh, well, can we really trust the city of San Antonio's inspectors? So if we go forward to the list of cons that you had here. So I am not looking to spend city resources or time or expertise in trying to convince other communities to create an interlocal agreement. Combined technology. I mean, that's a lot of work. Would it be cool? Absolutely. Is it worth the resources? Probably not. So in terms of the cons, the first one for what I'm proposing, which I can get to in a second, is the first two. They're irrelevant. The inconsistencies in conducting health inspections across multiple municipalities, certainly that can be discussed, but my proposal that's not really relevant either, because we've talked about we conduct our health inspections for mobile food units exactly the same as the city of San Antonio. In fact, my guess is that our fire inspection requirements also came from the city of San Antonio, and the reason why we in San Antonio are the only ones that require a fire inspection are because we drafted our code based on San Antonio's code. And then finally, loss of revenue. That last one is irrelevant. We don't exist as a city to generate revenue from permits. We do permitting for public safety purposes. So my proposal was, and has always been, and still is, and what I ask council to consider giving direction to the city to draft is very simple, and it's simply to say, if you have a valid and active permit from whatever municipalities we choose, whether it be San Antonio, New Braunfels, I would recommend at least those two, because I know New Braunfels is more strict than San Antonio. It's harder to get one there, but then it's considered valid in the city of Schertz. And there's no need to waste Schertz's experts and resources re-inspecting what the city of San Antonio has already inspected. There's no need to charge a business owner an additional fee. If we wanted, one of them is oversight. I don't know what kind of oversight we're looking for to have. I don't know how often we go driving around looking for food trucks and stopping and investigating the operation of those. But if that's something we're doing, we've got a lot of time on our hands. But even so, even if we wanted to retain oversight, I think that's silly. But even if we wouldn't say, okay, it's a $25 fee, you go, you show your valid permit from San Antonio in the Schertz office, you pay $25, and it's concurrent with the permit you already have. So when I said reciprocity, whatever the heck I said, I don't even know how I said the word the first time. I didn't have any intention that we would convince other communities to do that. I can't imagine, with how hard it's been to have this conversation, how hard it would be to convince the city of San Antonio to do something like that. It would probably take an act of God. But so what I'm suggesting here, and I'm asking the council to consider giving direction to the city to go forward with, is to draft a simple ordinance for the city of Schertz that says if you have an active and valid mobile food unit permit from a municipality that we know and trust, like New Braunfels or San Antonio, then we consider that valid in the city of Schertz. There's no need to get another inspection of the same thing by the same people with the same experience. There's no need to pay an additional giant fee. If we want, we can include a small fee for the cost of recording the paperwork that they've shown that they have a valid one in the city of San Antonio. So that's what I was looking for, something much simpler, something that I feel is pretty common sense way to simplify one tiny little thing that we have in terms of giving opportunities for businesses to either existing brick and mortar that want to expand or new businesses to begin.
So Mayor, Council, if I may, Councilman Larson, we share your opinion. We wanted to get there. We've really tried hard to get to yes, but as we've done our research and diligence, there's two things that I would ask the council to consider, and that's the level of risk we're willing to accept, both on the health and the fire side. Because not all municipalities, regulatory authorities do the same inspections the same way. We have personal experience in the city of Schertz on the health side with questionable inspections. On the fire side, Bexar County has since stopped accepting the city of San Antonio's because of the difference in inspections that they've seen. So we can absolutely can draft that policy and we can accept the regulatory authorities around us. No questions, Councilman. The question is, what level of risk are we willing to accept for our citizens? Whether if we start accepting health inspections from the other municipalities and we have folks start getting sick, again, that's one thing. Same thing on the fire side. We do it according to the National Fire Protection Agency code. That's what we've adopted. It's a hazard as vehicles go bumping down the road. I mean, that's the reality, right? So again, we will follow council's direction. We've tried really hard to get to yes on this one because it's not about the fees, to be quite honest. It doesn't matter to us. It's about the health and safety of our residents. So that's where we were trying to get to. We did a lot of research on this one, Councilman.
Yeah, and I'd like to respond to that because
and so that's just where we're coming from.
I'm going to be very blunt with you because it's absurd. Do our emergency services, like our fire, police, and EMS, do they ever work alongside emergency services from other communities?
They do.
If there were a major fire in Schertz at Amazon and San Antonio offered their professional assistance in putting that fire out, would we accept it? So we would accept the risk of our first responders, firefighters, citizens, and business owners in the hands of San Antonio, but we won't trust San Antonio to inspect a food truck?
Bexar County has not, sir. They've changed.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
So we're not.
So that's not sensible. Yeah, that's why I'm responding to. In government, everything's life and death, except for when we have a fire, we accept their help, but we hire their people to work in our community to inspect the same things, but we can't trust them when they're working in San Antonio. Is there something about the Schertz that Schertz provides that is additional safety?
Has nothing to do with that. We wanted to work with, that was our proposal.
And then the follow-up question, do you and your family eat in San Antonio restaurants?
Not in a long time.
So so you don't trust the city of San Antonio restaurants so much that you won't even eat there. Is that the reason, or you just don't?
We just don't eat out.
Okay. So do you think it's unsafe for a citizen of Schertz to eat in a San Antonio restaurant? Well, I need to, these are the cons that he's saying for doing this. If you're going to make those absurd claims, you need to be able to respond to these questions.
I don't think they're absurd.
Okay, so do you eat in San Antonio restaurants?
I don't think the police department thinks they're absurd. All we're saying is, there's risk. And if you...
Okay, so these are reasonable questions trying to determine the risk level that you're accepting for your own life, but saying is not acceptable for the city to put on our citizens.
I just don't think it's absurd. I wouldn't, I don't think the police department comes in here and gives you absurd information.
So why does the police department trust the San Antonio Police Department to respond alongside to them in critical situations, but not to conduct routine inspections of food trucks?
Well, what I would say is, we have agreements. We do have agreements with those cities.
So we only trust them because we have an agreement?
Well, no, but that's partly it, yes. So we have for Cibolo and Selma, we have reciprocal agreements for EMS, fire, and police. And, those have all been negotiated.
So what if we had a major fire event, sort of like when Schertz sent firefighters to help with wildfires in California? Do we have interlocal agreements there?
Can I finish my thought?
Sure.
I don't think I'm communicating, but we have those agreements with those other cities. It's not just a matter of, we take your word for it, you show up, and you help us out. Now, I'm not sure if we have an agreement with San Antonio for fire, police. So mutual aid agreements through ACOG, those are agreements. We have negotiated those. All we're saying is that it would probably be prudent to do the same thing. If you all don't want to, okay, we won't. We just accept the risk and that'll be it. But I don't think it's absurd, and I don't think it's absurd for the council to consider carefully the concerns that the police department have expressed in the matter. That's my only point.
All right, so I guess my response to the council then is, if you eat in a San Antonio restaurant, if you eat from a San Antonio food truck, then you are already determining that the risk is an acceptable level of risk. And so the idea that we can hire San Antonio inspectors, copy and paste San Antonio requirements and codes, trust San Antonio or other municipality experts with the life and safety of our first responders, citizens, and businesses, but not trust them to inspect a food truck is odd. So anyways, that's...
Yeah, I
thought this would be pretty straightforward, but as I've learned, everything will kill you, and government needs to save you. I'm asking the City of Council to realize that in this particular case, that's probably not the situation.
Councilmember Hayward.
I guess part of my question would be when you saying, or asking the question, if you're talking about a valid license, but then if you're saying that it may not be valid because the city of New Braunfels or the city of San Antonio deems that you didn't pass the health inspection, will you be able to know whether they passed and they still have a valid health inspection or not?
No, ma'am. So the example that I gave, if they hold a permit from a different jurisdiction, if for some reason that permit was suspended, inactivated, there are multiple reasons why that could be. In the years that I've done this, I've had to do 5. They were pretty serious violations, but Bexar County would accept it because I can't take that paper copy away from the vendor. And if by chance I am able to take the paper copy, did they make a copy and have one stored in their files? I would still be able to operate in jurisdictions without having some kind of system to say, hey, that permit's suspended for that reason.
Can I clarify something on that? So they would not be issued a permit unless they pass the inspection first. I think what she's referring to is if in the course of operating there was something that caused them to lose their license, which you said in 18 years at San Antonio you had 5 in the city of San Antonio, which is significantly large, then there would be no way for us to know until the next annual inspection that they were out of compliance.
Inspections in the field are random. The licensing inspection that we're talking about when you issue a permit, that is a once a year. The unit shows up with all their ducks in a row, all the required paperwork, every piece of equipment is typically working and in top shape. The inspections I was referring to are in the field. When we catch them operating at an event, say the 4th of July, we walk in, they've removed equipment. Equipment is in poor condition. We wouldn't allow them to operate. I walk in, I suspend that permit. Nobody else is going to know.
And does the city of San Antonio do random inspections on food trucks?
Yes.
Okay. Because I had my hut was permanent. I didn't see an inspector for 3 years, so I was just curious.
Okay. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, just real quick here. The last slide says a recommendation is to work with the city of San Antonio on a reciprocity agreement for MFUs. Are you saying we don't want to do that?
I'm saying it's a waste of time when we can just draft an ordinance that says we accept the San Antonio permit as valid, and it saves everybody time and resources instead of going through this rigmarole for something that's most likely going to be a dead end.
Councilmember Davis?
If that's what y'all want to do, I'd support it. I'm just, why? When we can make an ordinance and it can be done in a week in 30 minutes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
I do find some merits in Councilman Larson's perspective. Can you go back up a slide? You know, I agree with the city to the point on we have to look at the risk factor here, and I know the fire department's going to end up hating me now, but you know, I look at the fire inspection part. We talk about going to San Antonio because they do a fire inspection like we do. You know, I equate this back to the discussion we had several months ago about sheds, where, you know, let's not do a shed next to our house because it could catch on fire someday because someone's storing the wrong stuff in there. There's always a risk involved in anything. You know, I understand why you do the inspections. But a fire inspection is not required for every mobile food unit, because if it's the ice cream guy that's got a freezer in his back, I mean, the odds of his catching on fire is significantly different from the guy with the propane tanks. The example that you give from San Marcos, I'm not sure that any fire inspection that we do as part of the process would have prevented that. I called up the article and read it, and it was basically they had a loose connection on a propane tank. So if we do an inspection on a mobile food unit, and they've got a range hood and they've got everything else, again, as they operate their business and drive from locale to locale, who knows what's going to loosen up and have a bad turn of events at some point. When you go back and look at the comparisons of the cities, I would almost argue that it would make more sense to look at some kind of reciprocity, and yes, I can say that word, Scott. I would look at reciprocity probably more with Cibolo, University, Selma, maybe New Braunfels, because I can't think of too many food trucks that are sitting down in San Antonio with the size of it and a population base of, I think it's about 1.2, 1.3 mil, figuring that it's going to be to their advantage to drive up to Schertz and park on Main Street as it is now. The traffic and throughput is just not there. But you may have some local folks in the local area. To me, it's all about risk. So I agree with Mr. Kelman and Dr. Brown. My questions would be more along, I mean, I have certainly no problem with saying, let's look at saying, why not accept a food permit from Cibolo? So my question would be, what are they doing differently in their food inspection that would be significantly different from us? And then the other point is, how do we even know what's going on out there? Do we have a process? Do we even know how many food trucks are on Schertz at any given moment? You said we have 27 permits out there. Do they file a plan with the city that says, I'm going to be at location A, B, and C or location A on Monday, location B on Tuesday, and location C on Wednesday? Or, I mean, do we even know if they're operating? They got a permit. How do we know that there's not somebody that got a permit in Cibolo and is parked somewhere in Schertz because they don't understand that they're parked now in Schertz? So, you know, I agree with the staff. I mean, we have to look at the risk, but I think at some point we're taking the risk a little bit, you know, we're being too risk adverse
in the city of Schertz. To me, the risk is not whether or not Cibolo's issuing a permit, and we disagree with their permit process or their inspection process, or Universal City or Selma. The risk is, what kind of business operator do we have out there, and are they doing the right things in their business? You know, we have a process where we go back and look at our restaurants with random inspections, correct?
Yeah.
They come in, a fixed site, I won't mention a name because then someone will think I'm singling out a particular restaurant. But we have a brick and mortar restaurant. They apply for a permit. That permit is good for a period of time. They are subject to no-notice inspections, and we do conduct no-notice inspections on brick and mortars. What do we do for the mobile food operators? They get a permit, and if we don't know where they're at and we don't periodically check them, we're already assuming a significant amount of risk. I mean, they're just out there driving around doing what they want to do. So, I mean, if that's reality, then to me, the reality of it is, well, if Cibolo has an inspection process and it's not that far from us, I mean, really, is it maybe not worthwhile, business sense-wise, to say we go ahead and accept a permit from Cibolo? Because, again, if we're not following through on the permits that we issue, and looking at those 27 vendors, or giving them random inspections, even knowing where they're at, I mean, we've already assumed a significant amount of risk. So to me, I mean, like I said, I understand the city's perspective on risk. I understand Councilman Larson's perspective on government overreach. To me, I don't necessarily have a problem with, I mean, like he tried to ask a bunch of people, I go out to restaurants all the time outside the city of Schertz. And I'm putting my faith in those local communities that they are, in fact, doing the right thing. And I'm putting my faith in those business owners that they are, in fact, doing the right thing. So, I mean, I'm not against reciprocity. I'm not convinced that the initial step would be to go to San Antonio, because it's fragmented from us. I think if we're going to look at reciprocity, you might as well look at the towns that we border, like Selma and Cibolo and Universal City, and say, can we come to a common understanding? Again, not that we have to have a common inspection program or a common permit process, and we don't need to get a copy of your permit, but to me, the reality of it is, I don't know how we would stop someone who got a permit in Universal City to arbitrarily, or Cibolo, park in our city limits, and I'm not convinced that we would ever know that they were in our city limits. And to be honest with you, I really don't think, just by my long tenure of assessing human nature, that if a city employee rolled up on a mobile food unit that was selling tacos or burgers on 78, I think 9 out of 10 employees would never think to say, hey, is your permit from the city of Schertz? You know, I just don't see it. So, I mean, I think we're assuming some risk already. That's my take. I have no problem with reciprocity. I think we could probably look at doing it, at least as a test, to see if there's any problems. I would advocate for the local towns over San Antonio.
Okay, Councilmember Scott.
Okay, my question was, if we did this, would the only cities who do fire inspections would be Schertz, Bexar County, and San Antonio. And so I'm kind of in over my head on this all discussion, I'm letting y'all know, but wouldn't it be desirable to have one, Councilman Larson, who did both the fire and the food inspection? Or am I even asking a good question? Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's for council to decide. I think a majority of these communities don't see a value in it. I would imagine ours only exists because we didn't write our own regulations. We just copied San Antonio's, and that's why we have the same exact inspection process they have.
Right, but we do fire inspections as well. Us, Schertz, Bexar County, and San Antonio. So the little surrounding cities don't.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla.
And I have a lot of agreement there with Councilman Larson on this. You know, we talk a lot about small businesses and helping the small business community, but the Small Business Administration defines a small business as up to 500 people and $10 million a year in revenue or something like that. You know, these are micro businesses. These are, you know, one-man shows, you know, maybe a couple of helpers on a busy weekend, you know, trying to make a living. Having started up my own business many years ago and gone through those struggles, I can certainly appreciate what they have to deal with. You know, the money side of it is pretty irrelevant to us. I really wouldn't have a problem with recognizing, you know, the other permits from other cities that did the food and the fire inspections. I think there is an element of safety that does come with doing a fire inspection. Yes, we can't see what happens after a truck goes bouncing down the road for 30 miles, and what's going to happen is what's going to happen. But yet it's all this, there's a risk-reward discussion, and you know, if we can do things to make the chances of things being a safer experience for people, then we ought to do that, but keeping in mind that there's also the detrimental effects on the business in terms of cost, time, and effort, and finding that balance, and that's never an easy discussion. But as Councilman Davis says, you know, we're already assuming quite a bit amount of risk. You know, if we're not tracking these guys and putting geolocators on them and doing random inspections on them, I don't see that it really makes a whole lot of difference.
Okay. Councilmember Haywood.
I guess kind of along the lines of Councilmember Dalla, because I know when COVID hit pretty hard, we had someone in our community, in our neighborhood, schedule food trucks to come in every weekend. I don't know where the food trucks came from. I don't know if they were Schertz, if they were even permitted. I didn't ask. I just went up and said, hey, I'm supporting a business. I didn't think about it. And so if we're not knowing where they are to do random inspections, or I guess for me, it's like, how are we tracking them if we're, you know, if we're saying we're doing this and then we can just go in and randomly inspect them? Is there a way to track them? Are they listing, like Councilman Davis said, are they telling you where they're going to be? Because for us, it was just on our Facebook page, hey, this food truck will be here from this time to this time. And then those that wanted to pre-order, like one truck said, hey, we need you to pre-order because we only come out with a certain amount. And the other trucks were like, oh, no, we tried that. That doesn't work. Just get in line, and if you're here, we have food, you get it. If you don't, you don't. So I'm just kind of, because I'm kind of along the lines of that, of Mr. Larson maybe finding a way that we can do this with cities that are smaller than us. I'm not necessarily saying San Antonio. The cities that are bordering us, like Cibolo, Universal City, Selma, New Braunfels, possibly even Seguin, and charging a nominal fee for doing the paperwork, like verifying whatever they have, and then possibly even tacking on, if we're going to do the fire permit, because that's something you want to do, then I'm okay with that too. But I think, you know, if we're trying to give small businesses a hand up, let's give them a hand up and help them out, because I know that with COVID now, a lot of them are still struggling, even some of the food trucks. And that just gets somebody in the door in the city, and if we find that they're a problem, and typically if people are going to get sick from a particular truck, the word gets out and nobody else goes there. I can tell you there's a number of major establishments that had issues, and believe it or not, I was one of those ones that got caught at each one of those that was sick as a dog, and I don't go to those places to this day and will never go back no matter what they do. So, and I have no problem telling people the word. I'm just not going to do it at council, not to go there, and I won't go there. So I think part of that is, if people are getting sick because of food issues, of foodborne illnesses, is it bad? Yeah. But I think if people find out they're doing it and the word gets spreads, that food truck will be out of business in a heartbeat. And if we're only doing this yearly, I don't know if having all these fees to get started makes a difference. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, savvy small business owner might want to do some price shopping to see where they could get the cheapest permit. I don't know if that would happen. It's just my mind going in that direction. One of the things I do agree with, though, just for perspective, I was a food inspector when I was in the Air Force, and I inspected a number of, what was the classy name we used for the coaches, something. And anyway, we didn't call them MFUs. We gave them another name, but they were fine establishments generally. Now, as far as posting of inspection results goes, it was mandatory that they post their inspection results from all past inspections. And if there wasn't one posted, we'd generally ask the question, why? At the very least, they'd have to have a continuity binder to show what their inspection results were. So there wasn't a whole lot of guesswork involved in that. As I recall, I only failed one of those mobile stands, and I was doing that over in Germany for at least 2.5 years with one failure. So that's pretty good. I like the idea of having the fire permit available. I agree with Councilmember Larson that if we've adopted our regulations and whatnot from San Antonio, then we probably should accept San Antonio's permitting process as valid. That makes sense to me. I trust Schertz. New Braunfels, okay, you know what? If they added a fire permitting process to them, I could go, and same thing goes all the way down the line. Keep it simple, though. I don't want staff to have to jump through hoops trying to get some reciprocity. I can say it too sometimes. And I just had a wisdom tooth pulled not too long ago. It was painful to say it, but it came out all right. Keep it simple, though. Trying to make deals with San Antonio or even New Braunfels, Universal City on even the simplest matters, my goodness, can be theoretically or literally a root canal. And staff doesn't need that. If we can do this in-house, let's do it in-house. And then the key is, how do we let the people or the small business owners in the city know what our conditions are? It doesn't have to be rocket science. Councilmember Larson and I think we agree more often than he will admit. I think he has a valid point here. Let's just figure out a way to do it smart and simple. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. For clarity, is the food permit good for 1 year? It is. Is the fire permit good for 1 year, or is it per location?
It's 1 year and
1
usually
year.
done at the same time.
So we're talking about, this is not a revenue type of thing. This is $150 for a whole year to operate within the city of Schertz, just to make sure everything is, everything meets standards, that you're not going to have any issues. I just don't see, $150 for the safety of our residents. I tend to disagree with council on some of those issues because, you can, 4th of July is coming. You can get your truck inspected and get it all ready, and you pull up on the 4th of July if we have the Jubilee, and you're ready to go. Because you have your inspection for the whole 1 year. Those that don't have it will probably get it that same day. But if you're operating here on a regular basis, this is a very small price to pay to ensure the safety of our community, regardless of whether it's health or safety. So I understand where he's coming from. I understand some of that, but it's not driven by revenue, from what I can see on these numbers. Councilmember Brown, you had a question?
Yeah, real quick. After listening to everybody, I kind of got a better idea here. I got sidetracked earlier. But the food permit part, fully agree on reciprocity. It's pretty much standard. And if we have a fire permit add-on, like Councilman Hayward was saying, have a $25 admin fee, a $25 fire permit fee, And so, if you come from Cibolo is 95 and 50, so you're still you save $5 or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but at least you're not having to spend another actual food permit fee again when it's pretty much standard across the board. And some of these food trucks are not making much money. They're not all smash and crab or whatever. Yeah, purple pigs, whatever. Just a thought.
Okay, any other comments? Other comments? I think the consensus on council is they want to see something, an ordinance draft up, right?
Mayor, could I offer
yes,
just a quick response to Councilman Scagliola, just to give why I personally think you probably see a little difference in the fire side of it is it's very common that we're always living in different fire codes, and that's the case today. And so as those fire codes change, some may be in a 2012, some may be in a 2015, some may be in a 2018, some may go to the 2020 first. And so that's just one thing that may be why you see such a different range in those fire permits on there, is it's just very common that we're always living in different fire codes amongst the different cities. So, and that's the case today, even between us and San Antonio. We're in different fire code manual as it stands today. Just a little bit of a perspective.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not even saying we should probably impose a $25 fire fee. Just let them know what our requirements are. And when I was doing the food inspection, fire code and safety was part of that inspection. And I wasn't a firefighter, but I knew what the requirements were. So that's my take on that.
I think there's a consensus. Would council consider two of them, one for fire, one for food, just to keep them separate?
Yes.
That way, we can look at the fire inspection as a $25 fee and maybe accept other cities' agreements or licenses. At least we can prevent some of that potential hazard in that situation. Yes, Councilmember
Mayor,
Hager.
I think our city does need to also impose a administrative fee. I mean, at least because you're having to look at it and verify. So I think a fire code and an administrative fee, it doesn't have to be a huge amount, but I think we do need to charge that administrative fee because that is their time and we're paying for that particular, paying for the inspector's time to go and check that. And so that covers the cost of their fee, their wage, their salary.
Yeah, I think, with the fire permit, it's not going to apply to probably half the vendors, depending on what they're selling. But definitely, let's look at those options, and we'll let council decide what the fee is going to be, the administrative fee, if any, and the fire permit, if requested.
Yeah, Mayor, we'll put a couple options together, bring it back to you, draft ordinance with the add-on of the fire inspection fee potentially.
All right.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you, council. All right, then I think we have a roll call confirmation. Our city secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide roll call confirmation for agenda items number 8. There was no action on number 9.
Yes, if I recall, Mayor, the motion was made by the chair, seconded by Councilmember Scagliola, to extend the Declaration Ordinance 20H18 from June 23rd to July the 7th.
No, that was to coincide with the governor's order.
To coincide with the state's declaration, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I put. The motion was made by the chair, seconded by Councilmember Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Councilmember Scott, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is a closed session. The City Council will meet in closed session under Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code for consultation with City Attorney to receive legal advice regarding a matter in which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Government Code to include the following matter: the annexations pursuant to delay annexation development agreements. Due to social distancing rules, those that are not participating in the closed session, we ask that you step out of the building so we can conduct our business, and once we finish, we will reconvene. Let's take a 2-minute breather here. Since there's no vote taken, so we'll go straight to requests and announcements. Announcements by our city manager, Dr. Brown. Okay. Council, is there any items that you'd like to place on future agendas? None? Okay. Announcements by council members. Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Nothing, sir.
Council Member Scott.
I had a great meeting with Mr. Babbitt. It was fantastic. Mabbitt, sorry. EMS. It was just wonderful, and y'all do a wonderful job. Congratulations to him and the whole team.
Okay. Council Member Larson.
Nothing, Mayor.
Council Member Dalla.
Just a couple items. I went to the first chamber luncheon in about 3 months at the Santikos Theater. That was actually my first time at Santikos. It's a really nice facility, and it was a great chamber luncheon, seeing everybody again. And then a couple days later, I went to the chamber mixer at the Blue Bonnet, and good event. Got to see a lot of folks that hadn't seen in quite some time. So,
Okay. Council Member Scagliola.
The chamber meeting at Santikos was absolutely wonderful. And I'd just like an update on I got an email about the chip seal out in Wilson's Preserve. So if you can send a follow-up letter or whatever correspondence you receive, greatly appreciated.
Okay. Okay. Council Member Hayward.
Nothing, Mayor, but I do have an announcement or thanks. I'd like to thank the city for their the beautiful plant that was sent and the prayers on behalf of the passing of my father-in-law, Joseph Hayward. And I just want to say thank you. It was greatly appreciated.
Councilmember Brown.
Nothing.
Okay. I just want to express my my sincere gratitude to our staff. This COVID-19. I mean, it's just we were on. It seemed that things were getting better, and all of a sudden, all this changes. And I appreciate the staff and all the information that they gathered to make our decisions much easier. With that, it is now 9:18. We stand adjourned.